You ready?
I am Speed.
You're Speed. Okay, here we go.
Speed.
The little queen all golden flew hissing at the sea. To keep it back, to turn it back, she flew forth bravely. Manoli and Tegelen brought the 31 eggs of the clutch safely to Ben and Weir without so much as cracking a shell in the double furred sack that had been provided for the journey between.
They got fire dragon in the pit.
Fire lizard eggs?
Eggs, yes.
Their return caused a flurry of excitement, the Weir folk crowding around to examine the eggs. Duly informed, Lessa arrived, imperiously ordering a basket of warm sand from the hatching ground, directing it to be placed by the small soft hearth, and scrupulously turned at intervals to distribute the heat evenly. She judged that the eggs were a good 7 days from hatching hardness. As well, she said in her dry fashion, 1 hatching at a time is enough. Better still, we can present the worthies with their eggs at the impression. She seemed inordinately pleased with that solution and smiled on Manoli. Minora says that your feet aren't healed yet, so you're in charge of the clutch. And Felina, get this child out of those ridiculous boots and into some decent clothes. Surely we have something in stores that'll make her look less disreputable. Lessa departed, leaving Manoli the object of intense scrutiny. Felina, a tall, willowy woman with very beautiful curved black eyebrows and green eyes, gave her a long appraisal, sent 1 helper off for clothing from a special press, another to get the tanner to take Manoli's measure for footwear, a child for her shears, because Manoli's hair must be trimmed. Who had hacked it off? They must have used a knife. And such pretty hair, too. Was Manoli hungry? Tegelen had snatched her out of the cavern without a nay, yea, or maybe. Bring that chair here and push that small table over. Don't stand there gawking. Get the girl something to eat. How many turns do you have? Felina asked on the end of that long series of orders. 15, please, answered Manoli, dazed and trying very hard not to cry. Her throat ached and her chest was tight, and she couldn't believe what was happening to her. People fussing over how she looked and what she wore? Above all, Lessa had smiled at her because she was so pleased about the clutch. And it seemed as if she didn't have to worry about being sent back to Half Circle, not if the Weir folk were ordering her shoes and giving her clothes. 15? Well, you wouldn't need much more fostering, would you? Felina sounded disappointed. We'll see what Minora has in mind for you. I'd like you as mine. Manoli burst into tears. That provoked some more confusion because her fire lizards began swooping dangerously close to people's faces. Beauty pecked at Felina, who was only trying to offer comfort. Let us have some order here, said a fresh, authoritative voice. Everyone except the fire lizards obediently subsided, and room was made for Minora. And you be quiet too, she said to Squealing Beauty. Go on, and she waved at the others. Go sit quietly somewhere. Now, why is Manoli crying? She just burst into tears, Minora, said Felina, as perplexed as everyone else. I'm happy, Manoli managed to blurt out, each repetition punctuated by a heaving sob. Of course you are, said Minora understandingly, and made gestures to one of the women. It's been a very exciting and tiring day. Now you just drink this. The woman had returned with a mug. Now everyone will go about their duties and let you catch your breath. There, that's better. Manoli obediently sipped the drink. It wasn't fella's juice, but there was a slightly bitter taste. Minora urged her to drink deeply, and gradually Manoli felt her chest loosen, her throat stop aching, and she began to relax. She looked up to see that Minora was the only one at the little table, sitting with her hands folded serenely in her lap, her aura of calm patience very soothing. Feel more like yourself? Now, you just sit quietly and eat. We don't take in many new people, so there's bound to be a fuss about you. Soon enough to do everything else. How many fire lizard eggs did you find in that clutch? Manoli found it easy to talk to Minora, and soon she was showing the head woman the oil and explaining how she'd made it. I think you did wonderfully well all on your own, Manoli. Not but what I'd expected of someone Mavi has trained. Manoli's ease disappeared at the sound of her mother's name. Involuntarily she clenched her left hand, feeling the scar tissue pull painfully from the intensity of her grip. You wouldn't like me to send a message to Half Circle? Asked Minora. To say that you're safely here? I don't want you to, please. I'm no use to them there. She held up her scarred hand, and she halted. She'd been about to add, a disgrace. I seem to be useful here, she said quickly, pointing to the basket of fire lizard eggs. So you are, Manoli. So you are. Minora rose. Now eat your meat and we'll talk again later. When she had finished her food, Manoli felt much better. She was content to sit in her hearth corner watching the industry of others, and in a little while Felina came over with her shears and trimmed Manoli's hair. Then someone watched the fire lizard eggs while Manoli changed into the first brand new garment she'd ever had, being the youngest in a large family. The tanner came and not only measured her feet for proper boots, but by evening he'd also managed up some soft hide slippers that fit loosely over her bandaged feet. She was so changed in appearance that Miriam, passing her table just before the evening meal, almost failed to recognize her. Manoli had been worrying that Miriam was deliberately avoiding her because Manoli had impressed 9 fire lizards, but there was no restraint in Miriam's manner. Flopping into a chair across the table, she heartily approved the trim hair, the clothing, and the slippers. I heard all about the clutch, but I've been so busy up, down, in, out, running errands for Minora that I simply haven't had a moment. Manoli suppressed a grin. Miriam sounded exactly like Felina. Then Miriam cocked her head at Manoli. You know, you look so much nicer in proper clothes that I didn't recognize you. Now if we can only get you to smile once in a while. Just then a little brown lizard glided in to land on Miriam's shoulder, snuggling affectionately up to her neck and peering at Manoli from under her chin. Is he yours? Yes. This is Tolly, and I have 2 greens, Ruppa and Locke. And I'll make it very plain that 3 is quite enough for me. However did you manage to feed 9? They're so ravenous all the time. The last of Manoli's awkwardness with her friend disappeared as she recounted how she had coped with her fare of fire lizards. The evening meal was then ready, and Miriam, ignoring Manoli's protest that she was able to fetch her own, served them both. Tegelen joined their table and managed to coax Beauty, much to Manoli's amazement, to accept some food from his knife. Don't be surprised, Miriam told Manoli with just a touch of condescension. These greedy guts will eat whatever's offered from them. But that doesn't mean that they'll look to whoever feeds them. Besides, with 9, she rolled her eyes so expressively that Tegelen chuckled. She's jealous, so she is, Manoli. I am not. 3's quite enough, though. I would have liked a queen. Let's see if Beauty will come to me. Grawl does. Miriam concentrated on coaxing Beauty to accept a piece of meat, while Tegelen teased her, rather unfairly, Manoli thought. But Miriam returned his jibes with a few tart remarks of her own in a way that Manoli would never have dared address an older man, much less a dragon rider. She was very tired, but it was pleasant to sit in the big kitchen cavern, listening to Tegelen, watching Miriam coax Beauty, though it was Lazybones who finally ate from her hand. There were other small groups, chatting late over their evening meal, the women pairing with dragon riders. Manoli noticed wineskins being passed. She was surprised at first, because the Seahold served wine only on very special occasions. Tegelen sent one of the weir boys to get him cups in his skin and insisted that Manoli, as well as Miriam, have a cup. Good Bendon wine is not to be refused, he told her, filling her cup. There now, isn't that the best you've ever tasted? Manoli forbore to mention that, barring wine laced with Fellis juice, it was the first. Living was certainly conducted on different rules in the weir. When the weir's harper began to play softly, more for his own pleasure than to entertain anyone in the cavern, Manoli did not restrain her fingers from tapping the rhythm. It was a song she liked, though she felt his chords were dull, which was why she began to hum her harmony when it did not discord with his. She wasn't even aware of what she was doing until Miriam looked up with a smile on her face. That was just lovely, Manoli. Oh, Heron, come over here. Manoli has a new harmony for that one. No, I couldn't. Why not? Demanded Tegelen, and poured a little bit more wine in her glass. A little music would give us all heart. There's faces around here as long as a wet turn. Timidly at first, because of the older injunction against singing in front of people, Manoli joined her voice to Harper O'Haron's baritone. Yes, I like it, Manoli. You've a sure sense of pitch, said O'Haron so approvingly that she started to worry again. If Yanis knew she was singing at the weir... But Yanis wasn't here. and he would never know. Say, can you harmonize to this one? And O'Haran broke into one of the older ballads, one in which she had always sung a countertune against Patiran's melody. Suddenly there were other voices humming along, softly but surely. Miriam looked around, stared suspiciously at Tegelen, and then pointed at Beauty. She's humming in tune. Manoli, however did you teach her to do that? And the others? Some of them are singing too. Miriam was wide-eyed with amazement. O'Haran kept on playing, nodding at Miriam to be quiet so they could all hear the fire lizards while Tegelen craned his head and cocked his ears, first at Beauty, then at Rocky and Diver and Brownie, who were near him. I don't believe it, said Tegelen. Don't scare them. Just let them do it, said O'Haran in a low voice as he modulated his chords into another verse. They finished the song with the fire lizards humming obediently along with Manoli. Miriam demanded then to know how on earth Manoli had gotten her lizards to sing with her. I used to play and sing for them in the cave, you know, to keep us company. Just little twiddles. Just little twiddles? I've had my 3 much longer, and I never even knew they liked music. Just shows that you don't know all there is to know, doesn't it, young Miriam? Teased Tegelen. Now that isn't fair, Manoli interceded, and then hiccuped. To her embarrassment, she hiccuped again. How much wine have you been giving her, Tegelen? Demanded Miriam, frowning at the brown rider. Certainly not enough to put her in her cups. Manoli hiccuped again. Get her some water. Hold your breath, O'Haran suggested. Tegelen brought water, and with quick sips, Manoli managed to stop her hiccuping. She kept insisting that she didn't feel the wine, but she was very tired. If someone would watch the eggs, it was so late. With solicitous help, Tegelen and O'Haran supported her to her sleeping chamber, Miriam fussing at them that they were 2 great big numbwits who hadn't a lick of sense between them. Manoli was very glad to lie down and let Miriam remove the slippers and the new clothes and cover her. She was asleep before the fire lizards had disposed themselves about her for the night. Can you stop it?
Oh, okay. I was focusing on drawing.